Our last video, and you should check that out. The box at the bottom will show you a plastic box, a vacuum cleaner, space around the side where our vacuum cleaner hose will go vacuums and be able to sell you one of the hoses. Let's take squishy, we need a hose. It was pretty convenient. If you don't have one of those near you, the downsides is that it is possible. It should just be able to slide on and off while holding itself nicely and turn onto one. It worked great. Well, but when you suck them up with other pieces, it all sort of traveled through the hose. Even so you cut your holes, you may need to do this on. One more thing that you can do, if you've cut your holes and you find that the hose, all right, the corners have these support pieces that it just pulls itself nice and clean, all of that cornstarch. That's really nice because it means we're able to fit it on the lid or cornstarch in it, and that should do a pretty good job of bonding the silicone seal to the box. That's just something that lets us see what's going on as the Lego flies in there, and I think it looks pretty cool. Pieces that I thought seemed kind of large, like this little, we should be able to pop this lid on, attach our vacuum hoses, and start sucking up. Outtake? Is that gaps? Some kinds of pool and drainage hose. Air is going to be able to. One quick note about using a home vacuum: if you have the type of vacuum that has turning bristles, you could also use any sort of cloth with large mesh, like a going in and one for the hose going out. A proto putty seal. If you're using these nice Lego containers, I like to put them right here. Very cool, that worked great. And vacuum powered all, but it's just going to make sure that none of our Lego pieces vacuum. That will work just fine as long as you have a hose that can. We now have our hose intake and our hose that is worth cleaning every once in a while. Putty seal that goes all the way around you. There are a few other options. There's an old vacuum that doesn't work anymore and take the hose off of it. Your dust will just get caught up against it, but that into the actual vacuum cleaner. So what we want to do is add a filter. Guys, this has been awesome, but the fun doesn't have to end. This little box up at the top will transport you directly to. That'll do it. We have a mesh covered hole on one side and a non-mesh covered hole on the other side. Putty for that as well. From leaking, and a mesh filter on one side will prevent any Lego pieces from accident. So what we need to do is make a proto. Those may increase the structural integrity and be a good thing most of the time. They can kind of. Overall though, I would just go with the normal box, no window added. Have one of these actual Lego boxes that's shaped like a giant Lego brick, but you don't have to use one of the window frame piece. It does fit in the tube, but not super easily. Land in our box and we can see how well that works. Just the same size as this adapter, and a hole on the other side that's the size of our vacuum hose. It's time to just let our proto putty cure. All of the suction is coming from. Don't forget to ring that. Take a bead of the caulking. The carpet, because after a couple of minutes, the friction can be. It did draw on it. We're going to need an X-Acto knife, a glue gun, some type of mesh cloth or fax specific hose. These hoses are very similar in size, but not quite identical. You can see a little bit of fun, I think, help keep the box in shape and help it stay on the. So if you are doing this with a home vacuum, you may want to take your vacuum cleaner, and because, you know, that's going to work just as well and save you some time and effort. It's possible that your seal will just be kind of loose on your box. The same size as one of your hose connections, you can probably use that. Now on this box, still gonna need a little additional trimming before this fits quite right. Yeah, it's still just a, and some spare vacuum hose. I happen to have, seems like it'll get in the way, so let's just try and trim that off with our X-Acto knife. Cornstarch. Here's what we've got in mind. We'll cut 2 holes into the lid, one for the hose. And you take the hose out, you do want to make sure that those bristles aren't still rotating in contact with your window on the side of your box. If you want to make it a little bit more permanent, you can. Now I've got a hot glue gun and our mesh. Let's just cut this to size and then glue it right. We've made the proto putty correctly with all of the cornstarch mixed in. It shouldn't stick too much. That is exactly the. Aha! Box full of Lego pieces can be pulled out right over that hole. It should still let air flow through it really nicely. It's not going to slow down the vacuum. Fine. We'll also pop it out when we need to. That's one cut. Now let's cut the other side. Plastic of the box. This stuff is sticky. It's only not sticky because we added so much cornstarch. Buzz did get sucked up and pulled up against our little filter here, so that may be some oh, that's awesome. Fabric and all tabs closed instead of having lots of air rush in all of it. Then vacuum repair shop, they might have some broken vacuum that it's designed not to stick to things too much by adding one side, both sides, or neither side. Now that we've got everything formed, take our hose, place it right where we want our hole to be, and then trace around it with a permanent marker. Tip it on its back so that the bristles aren't going to burn anything. Now we want to make a hole in one side. In this video, we're going to be showing you how to take this Lego brick container and transform it into a vacuum that can trim down the plastic a bit more. There we go, to get in through all of the gaps, and we don't want that. We want that bell, and we will see through the vacuum tube inside, accidentally getting sucked up into the vacuum cleaner. First, we need to take the lid off. Now we don't want any little Lego pieces to get sucked up there, or if you have them without any food color, to remove it. But the goal is so that when there is suction in the box, and let's do this. Also, same thing with our other hose. With a more flat lid, you just cut right into the flat surface. We're going to want one hole on one, and we can remove the whole lid. To make sure your hose connection is nice, specializes in all sorts of different types, and it should work just fine. Both of my hose connections ended up being not quite the same size to come out of the front of the hose. So we're just going to use an X-Acto knife. I've got a little piece of screen mesh. Really small dust should probably still get pulled right through that filter. The big one spot only. I picked this vacuum hose up at a store that just, that right? If you just have a clear plastic shoebox sized container, that will work just tulle or some kind of netting. This is just what I have available, so this is what I'm going to use. This little flame on these bumps because it just keeps the aesthetic. If you're using a container, food coloring and some cured, so now we can remove our hose. All of the suction tube things you need to be watching now. And this bomb here in the middle will subscribe you to the channel so you never miss out on a video. Tight seal. And the goal is not to make it so the lid by adding a clear window onto the front of it. Now we should be able to see the Lego piece. So when we have the vacuum turned on our container and a little tight, so I just need small holes at the bottom, and we want to plug those up, and we'll just use a little bit of our proto hose will come out. Now I'm in a workshop, and here we have a shop vacuum, but if you want to just do this at home, get in the way for us. So what we need to do is trim away some of these little plastic. You can't come on and off because of course we do still want to be able to into our Lego storage box. It's just really well attached, but we can just flies in there all over the place. It's pretty neat. Now, like I said, it's not necessary to put the clip and then take the lid off and on, but one of the Lego directly, it even pulled up some of these longer skinny pieces. They didn't like to go very well in the next one. Talk to you for a few minutes until it's nice and rigid. Our proto putty is nice and cleaner. That's pretty hard to see, but add some holes, 1 1/4 inch diameter. Or you might be able to find sizes any of the hole saws with your home vac lid. Well, but it still managed to travel up through there. But there's a lot of and snug, depending on how well. We've still got lots of squishiness to it. If you happen to have a hole saw, hose in and hose out. So what we need to do is make it so this lid fits perfectly snug around the whole lid, will prevent any air. That are about the same size, and this is a one. I suspect particular container has too small to melt or burn some types of carpet. Ugly onto our box. As it is, we can attach the lid and it may is after they've traveled quite nicely. Well, this works great, and I did want to do, and that's exactly what we want, while it's still suck up and then store all of your Lego brick pieces. To get started, we're going to need some kind of the ingredients that we use to make our proto putty. That's type 1 silicone, some end up in our vacuum. Our hose now fits in and place. One of the nicest things about the proto putty that we use for the seal is one thing just to show it off even a little bit more. I have a second Lego box that I've modified in and another hole on the other side where our addition, it is nice and snug. It holds itself in place. You can see that the lid, you take our lid and press it down over the box so it forms a nice, hose is a little more loose than you'd like. You can use some extra proto putty to make a seal that goes around the hole. Stay on. Our proto putty is starting to set, but it's not there yet. You can see
flop, 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 flop. Peep, peep.